Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to CytoDyn's Investment Community Webcast. At this time, all participants are in a listen mode only. A question and answer session will follow our formal presentation. You may submit your questions at any time during the webcast by typing them into the Q&A box found to the left side of your screen. Please note that this webcast is being recorded. I will now turn the webcast over to Antonio Miglioresi, Chief Financial Officer. Thank you. You may begin.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This is Antonio Miglioresi, CFO of CytoDyn. Joining us on today's webcast is our President and CEO, Dr. Nader Pourhassan, our Chairman, Chief Medical Officer, and Head of Business Development, Dr. Scott Kelly, our Chief Operating and Technology Officer, Dr. Nitya Ray, and our Senior Executive Vice President of Clinical Operations, Dr. Chris Reckner. Before we begin today's presentation, it is essential that we provide you with important cautionary language related to certain federal securities laws. Today's presentations and remarks made during today's presentations will include certain forward-looking statements that involve risks, uncertainties, and assumptions that are difficult to predict. Words and expressions reflecting optimism, satisfaction, or disappointment with current prospects, as well as words such as believes, hopes, intends, estimates, expects, projects, plans, anticipates, and variations thereof, or the use of future tense identifying forward-looking statements, but their absence does not mean that a statement is not forward-looking. Forward-looking statements specifically include statements about leronlimab, its ability to provide positive health outcomes, the possible results of clinical trials, studies or other programs, or ability to continue those programs, the ability to obtain regulatory approval for commercial sales, and the market for actual commercial sales. The company's forward-looking statements are not guarantees of performance, and actual results could vary materially from those contained in or expressed by such statements due to risks and uncertainties, including the regulatory determinations of leronlimab's efficacy to treat HIV, COVID-19 patients, cancer patients, NASH patients, NAFLD patients, among other indications by the US FDA and various drug regulatory agencies in other countries. The company's ability to raise additional capital to fund its operations, the company's ability to meet its debt obligations, the company's ability to enter into partnership or licensing arrangements with third parties, the company's ability to identify patients to enroll in its clinical trials in a timely fashion, the company's ability to achieve approval of a marketable product, the design, implementation, and conduct of the company's clinical trials, the results of the company's clinical trials, including the possibility of unfavorable clinical trial results, the market for and marketability of any product that is approved, the existence or development of vaccines, drugs, or other treatments that are viewed by medical professionals or patients as superior to the company's products, regulatory initiatives, compliance with governmental regulations and the regulatory approval process, legal proceedings, investigations, or inquiries affecting the company or its products, general economic and business conditions, change in foreign political and social conditions, stockholder actions or proposals with regard to the company, its management, or its board of directors, and various other matters, many of which are beyond the company's control. The company urges investors to consider specifically the various risk factors identified in its most recent Form 10-K and any risk factors or cautionary statements included in any subsequent Form 10-Q or Form 8-K filed with the SEC. Except as required by law, the company does not undertake any responsibility to update any forward-looking statements to take into account events or circumstances that occur after the date of this presentation. I will now turn the webcast over to Dr. Nader Pourhassan.
Thank you, Antonio, and thank you everyone for being on this call. Today's presentation is to update everyone about what we will be looking for to have in 2020. Our future with 4 important indications: HIV, NASH, cancer, and COVID-19. Our drug development plan will be explained by myself, Dr. Nitya Ray, Dr. Scott Kelly, and Dr. Chris Reckner. And our finance, Mr. Antonio Miglioresi, will be on the call. So far, we we have had problems with our CRO, so we have come up with new CROs. We have signed an agreement thanks to Dr. Reckner leading that project and Dr. Ray. And our new team, we are hiring very important people in very important positions. For example, we have hired the biostatistician that I'm honored to let everyone know. It's Dr. Alok Krishen from GSK. And we also got we're able to hire a bioanalyst, Dr. Darshan Jaini, who's an ex-Pfizer person. And then we hired recently a clinical regulatory person, Dr. John Andrews. Now, Dr. John Andrews is ex-Roche, but he was part of the team that brought the first drug approved for HIV, AZT. And then he also was part of the first cocktail that was approved with HIV. So he's very knowledgeable. We really need his expertise for our clinical section that we're going to be filing. And we also already have Dr. Sinu Srinivasan, and that's from CMC Regulatory. A lot of credit goes to our Dr. Nitya Ray for hiring these talents. And we are hoping to let you know today what to expect in 2022. So when I explain what we're going to do in 2022, we should answer some questions. When did we initiate each program that we have currently? Whatever we have right now, when did we initiate it? We initiated a lot of programs. What happened to them? Where did we get to? Did we do positive things with it, or we just started something just for the sake of starting? And then we should answer the question, how far have we advanced each program? Were we successful? And what is our 2022 outlook for each program? Based on the past progress, how far can we realistically take each program in 2022? That's very important. That's why I'm going to start with what we have started and where is that program now and where we think it's going to go in 2022. The shareholders should base upon their decisions about our company based upon, in my opinion, where we started each program, where we took it, and can we take it further. So with that said, let's look at what we had in 2013. We only had one thing in 2013. The only thing was we purchased leronlimab. 2014 and 15, again, one task, one major task. 2014 was HIV monotherapy phase 2. That's all the company had. And then we added GVHD phase 2. Then we added in 2016 one task, HIV combination therapy phase 3. Now, one of these tasks is good enough to have one biotech company and just get that to the finish line, and that would be a huge success. So when we add one more in 2017, we didn't drop the ones before that. That's why I put this picture together. We continue the progress of the old one, but we keep adding to our workload. And that in 2017 was monotherapy for HIV program. I talk a lot about HIV program monotherapy. That was something we were very excited, and we still are very excited. In 2018, we add one more. Instead of just continuing with the last four, we added another program. We entered the cancer arena. Metastasis triple negative breast cancer, phase 1B-2 was granted to us by FDA. 2019, we added one more program, NASH. And we will talk about that thanks to Dr. Chris Reckner, and we have a lot to say about that today, and he does too. 2020, all of a sudden, we added quite a bit more, 3 more. This is not normal. This is not normal for a biotech company to keep adding more things. The reason we're adding all of these is because leronlimab keeps showing positive, and it's put the burden on our team to keep carrying these new tasks. And we're doing that, but we're not dropping the ball in the past ones. So in 2020, the 3 tasks were, we actually realized leronlimab is working on a mechanism of action that can have effect in 22 solid tumor cancer, in our opinion. Our animal studies showed this. And pandemic started, so we did 2 trials in moderate and severe. And we completed those trials. In 2021, 5 tasks were added. I mean, if you see that, we did long haulers thanks to Dr. Reckner single-handedly. Brazil, 2 trials. US, we just filed the critically ill population, and we're revisiting the monotherapy situation, which is we already had given the phase 3 protocol to the FDA, but we just going to now finalize that protocol. Now, so from 2013 to 2021, what we're going to say about 2022, it's very important that people look at what we did in 2013 to 21. And if we're not capable based upon that, then that's something the shareholders should know. But if we are, they should pay careful attention, very careful attention, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. 2013 to 2021, all the programs that we did is right here. This is going to be on our website. People, please go look at it. We completed the monotherapy phase 2. GVHD, we paused it. It was a small population compared to other ones, so we paused that. And we had problems with our CRO. But the combination therapy HIV, our main part, we had a primary endpoint, statistically significant, and we continue with the phase 3 monotherapy with 600 patients almost, and we have got fantastic results that we reported constantly. But that phase 3 monotherapy was not a pivotal study. We need a pivotal study to get approval. Metastatic triple negative breast cancer. We filed a breakthrough designation. How many companies get to do that? We generated data that was very strong, and we talk about it. NASH, we completed. We're going to talk very quickly about the rest of them, but you can see yourself, and I'm not going to go to it, that we complete projects that we start. And if with Brazil, we are now running into problems with enrollment, what's the chances of us being able to solve that problem? Well, the chances are what we have done in the past. When there was a problem with monotherapy phase 3, FDA says stop. You need to have higher, responders rate. We solved that problem, thanks to God and the beautiful team that we have. When we had problems with other indications, what did we do? We solved the problem. We will be solving the problem with Brazil also. We will get to it at the time that we talk about that. So 2022, we don't have 3 or 5. We have 8 new tasks that our team is going to talk about right now. So the first one is HIV BLA submission to FDA. The tremendous mess that we had from our Amarex folks was cleaned up, most of it, with Dr. Chris Reckner. That took a lot of his time. People should ask how many hours did he work. I would say quite a bit. So I'm going to ask Dr. Nitya Ray, who took over that, because Dr. Chris Reckner is working on too many projects, and we'll get to those projects that are very exciting in a minute. But Dr. Ray, explain to us, please, where we are with BLA for HIV.
Right. The HIV BLA, we have submitted the non-clinical and CMC modules. The last one is submitted CMC module by the end of last month. So we are working very expeditiously to finish the clinical module, module 5, and we have solved some of the issues, the technical issues that we faced with the receptor occupancy assay. So the method is working, but we are in the process of validating the method. Once the method is validated, we'll be analyzing the samples, and we are very confident that we are going to make it. And as you know that, we had a lot of issues with the receptor occupancy assay. To be honest, it is not a simple assay. It is it's a difficult assay to do, and given that the dynamics of the receptor, CCR5 receptor, because they internalized, but we are solving it. We are working with a CRO, very well-known CRO, and we have also hired internally. We have strengthened our team that Dr. Purhasan was talking about. Darshana Jani, she just joined this week, and she is an expert in this area. She will be responsible for clinical biosciences, and she has worked with many CROs, on the receptor occupancy. She's an expert in this. She's well known in that community, in the scientific community, and she joined our team, and I'm very excited about that. and she'll take full responsibility to make sure that we get it done on time and that will meet FDA's expectation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ray. And the fact that you were able to find these great talents for us, we're very thankful. But I think each one of them have expressed to you how excited they are with the molecule. Am I right about that?
Absolutely.
All right. So the HIV phase 3 pivotal monotherapy. When we started that trial, we were hoping to have a higher responders rate. We got that, and we filed up phase 3 with FDA. So why didn't we go forward with that? A good question would be, where is that program since we filed it with FDA? Well, FDA at that time had very limited data from us. They wanted to get more understanding of the monotherapy. This is not an easy thing because it's dangerous to take people out of their current regimen. What's going to happen if they don't make it, they fail, the viral load fails? Do they go back to their original regimen safely? That was number one question. Do they get resistance to Miraviroc maybe? Do they lose a component of their regimen? We answered those questions because FDA is very specific about those safety issues. And FDA was happy to let us do a large trial. And that large trial, we needed more responders rate. Now, the new protocol, this is where we are discussing with FDA. The new protocol, there are superiority trial or non-inferiority. We either have to do those with the drugs or we have to do it with the monotherapy by itself with a couple of arms, perhaps a 350 arm versus 700 milligram arm. It'll be an induction maintenance protocol, and we're working with FDA to hopefully be able to do it by comparing lower dose with higher dose in monotherapy and have an induction and maintenance. Induction, we will look at the patients more closely, perhaps every 2 weeks first and then every 1 month for the viral load. And in real life, the maintenance should represent every 3 months viral load check. So those things we will be finalizing, and then we believe we're going to be able to hit our primary endpoint with phase 3 because we have seen a high responders rate, specifically after 24, 30 weeks in all the arms. So the next task is long haulers. I was approached by Dr. Chris Reckner that he said he really likes to do a long hauler study, and I originally told Dr. Scott Kelly I'm not really big on it, but Dr. Scott Kelly indicated that Dr. Chris Reckner knows what he's talking about, you don't. So I listened to him and we started the long hauler trial, and the result everybody saw in 56 patients what we got. But Dr. Reckner, tell us where we are, give us a little bit background about it, and then tell us whatever you can, please.
Sure, Nader. So the background is that in CD10, we didn't have a specific time period from when they had COVID. And back when COVID was first starting up and we were doing CD10 and CD12, we were actually looking at long haulers in those patients. And we observed that several of those patients improved after leronlimab treatment, after the unblinding happened. We saw who got and who didn't get. So then we started looking at doing a long hauler trial, which led us to the exploratory trial, which showed excellent results from symptom reduction in these patients. And we're further honing down what we're looking at with patients. The majority of problems that long hauler patients have are cognitive fog and fatigue, and we're really going to be focusing on helping people with that, especially given the fact that we cross the blood-brain barrier, and in macaque studies, we're at 75% receptor occupancy in the brain. So we think it'll help.
So where are we with the protocol that you submitted to FDA for phase 2 or phase 2-3? I think they said no phase 2-3, phase 2. Where are we with that?
Yeah, so FDA gave us additional comments. They actually put it out for 3 different divisions to help. They came back with some excellent remarks, which we've adapted, and we're getting ready to resubmit that shortly to them. And I think that helps us both. The FDA is helping us make a better protocol.
Who's our CRO?
The CRO for CD18 will be Symbio.
Symbio. Okay, thank you so much. And the next program that we will be having results and have that as our one of our main goals is NASH. Now with NASH, again, this was something that I was for that. Dr. Reckner started it. We were very happy, Scott Kelly, and I was against him adding 350 milligram arm open label. And thank God he did not listen to me. Dr. Kelly always makes sure that Dr. Reckner gets his way. And because of that, we now have beautiful results to submit. Now, there are some people asking questions, which I'm going to, after Dr. Reckner give us the detail of this NASH that we are so excited and why we're excited. And I'm going to ask you some question that the short sellers are asking. But Dr. Reckner, explain to us about NASH, please.
So NASH is fat and fibrosis in patients that leads to liver failure and cirrhosis. We noticed in animal models that we're reducing the fat in the animals by 75%. So that led to us starting the NASH trial. Our primary endpoint is looking at fat reduction because that's what we saw with animals. But in the open label, we're seeing excellent results with reduction of fibrosis. So it's known that when you reduce fat, you can get some fibrosis reduction. We appear to be doing both in the open label, and soon to be locking database where we'll see what happens with the higher dose of 700 milligrams.
Yeah, and we know that hepatocytes, and as well as, hepatocytes contain CCR5, right? We also know that the cells that produce scar tissue in the liver also contain CCR5. So we think we work by both mechanisms. That's what we're going to be seeing with the results.
And comparing this data that we have so far with a normal placebo, it looks like we should be able to hit the primary and secondary endpoint if you compare to the placebo, the data that I received for placebo from other trials that failed. But some of the short sellers, I believe, that's what I believe, they are shorting the stock and then they're asking questions that is, I think they're actually shorting their own brain because they're asking something that is doesn't make sense to me. So Dr. Reckner, they're saying that 107 millisecond drop in fibrosis, CT1, is really nothing. Is that right?
That's a huge decrease in patients. And this study that we did not look at biopsy. That'll be for the phase 3 study. But we wanted something that would be quick, that we could get results back and look at 350 versus 700, and see if we had a signal. When you do biopsies, you're looking for about a 40 millisecond change. 80 millisecond, you're going to get biopsy changes that represent the decrease in that CT1 that actually I think we'll get an accentuation of the biopsy results in the phase 3. So 80 milliseconds is phenomenal. The most impressive thing, though, is we're seeing this in severe patients where we didn't previously think you could get resolution of fibrosis.
And the data that we said in the title was 80% of the patient had 50 millisecond drop, and 50% had 80 millisecond drop average. Now, somebody sent me a question thinking that I was writing a poem and I'm trying to match the poem, 50, 80, 80, 50. I wasn't doing that. This is the results. And this is what we're going to be showing to the FDA, hopefully, as soon as we unblind the rest of it. Tell us about the unblinding and when do you think we're going to have that? Because that's a huge event for us because of what we're seeing in the open label so far.
We're working on database lock right now. Shortly thereafter, we're looking at before Christmas vacation, being able to produce a top-line report. And this gives us the ability to look at what's going on with the 700 milligram dose, which I'm very excited to see, and looking at the 350 milligram dose as compared to the placebo in the double-blind portion of part 1. So we're really excited.
Yeah, and some people are saying that if there's other NASH trials, they do 1,000 patients, so we probably need partnership. 1,000 or 2,000 or 10 patients, if you had your primary and secondary endpoint, that's a huge deal. We don't know if we have because we haven't unblinded, but we're really waiting to see how that comes out. But the next task for 2022 is cancer basket trial, 22 indications. We have a lot of talk about patients who talk to Dr. Kelly. Dr. Kelly is involved with a lot of patients who want to get on leronlimab. And Dr. Kelly, tell us a little bit why we are excited about the basket trial.
Well, we're excited about the basket trial. I'll start by saying, we just presented at the San Antonio Breast Conference. When I say presented, there was a poster December 10th, and that was in regards to results with metastatic triple-negative breast cancer in combination with carboplatin and CCR5 positive metastatic triple-negative breast cancer. And I'll tell you, the reason we're excited about the basket trial is I think that there's a growing acceptance that the tumor microenvironment is the next frontier for immunotherapy. And I mean this among practicing physicians, the academic world, as probably as well as big pharma. And I think we're more advanced in this. We've really been looking at the mechanism of action in the tumor microenvironment to see leronlimab's impact across multiple different oncologic indications. And we also think that we can pair this with a checkpoint inhibitor, chemo, radiation, antibody drug conjugates, as well as maybe even a potential monotherapy in certain patients that don't qualify for other treatments. And we think it goes down to the mechanism of action with Tregs, and Tregs come in and turn off the immune system. We know that they have a high prevalence of CCR5, but we can block that. We can actually maybe leverage the immune system. If we look at macrophage repolarization, that's another potential opportunity. Our animal studies showed a significant reduction in angiogenesis. I think it was 62% in total vessel area and 80% reduction in small vessel area. But we know that tumors need a blood supply to grow, and if we can help limit that, then we think we could have benefit for patients. And the last is obviously, we know that normally CCR5 is only present on immune cells, but we know that when cells undergo malignant transformation, that they start sprouting up CCR5, and we believe that's a contributor as to metastasis. So we have multiple different mechanisms, and we're continuing to find more as we go along that we're going to be evaluating.
Yeah, and the breakthrough designation that we filed, Dr. Nitya Ray did a fantastic job on that. There were some patients with brain metastasis. Dr. Ray, explain to us for a breakthrough designation strategy, are we going to file for brain metastasis, and perhaps maybe later on, if we do get breakthrough designation on the original submission, maybe we want to ask for basket trial of the data. But tell us about the brain metastasis data, please. You're muted, Nitya. Nitya, you're muted, please. Yep.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, the breakthrough designation application that we submitted, it had 28 patients from 3 different trials. And out of the 28, 6 of the patients had brain metastases. These are all metastatic triple-negative breast cancer patients. So we have submitted all the results, including the patients with brain metastases, now with the FDA, and FDA is reviewing it. So we're waiting for the FDA's response to our BTD application, and we expect to hear from them in about 2 to 3 weeks. About 60 days after we submitted the application. That was done, I believe, on November 5th. So by January 5th, we should hear from FDA. And then we are going to discuss with FDA and see that what our path forward with the brain metastasis. Now, these are not the only brain, patients with the brain metastases, because these are only patients with the metastatic triple-negative breast cancers. So we have other patients in the basket trial that are not mTNBC, had the brain metastases. And so we are very excited about that, what's happening with these patients. And so we are going to, again, discuss with FDA, and we do plan, after we receive the response from FDA on the BTD's application that is submitted, we are going to plan for perhaps another BTD, just focusing on the brain metastases.
Cancer breakthrough designation that we filed, we should hear hopefully soon. And when this is going to happen in 2022, if the breakthrough designation is there, we will be doing, if there is a need for phase 3 or whatever it is, and we will move forward for approval. If we don't get breakthrough designation, we're still going to immediately do a trial of the magnitude where we can hit the p-value. Sacilizumab had a phase 1-2. Their data was strong. Hopefully, our data is strong enough to impress the FDA and get a breakthrough designation, but we'll know soon. The next two tasks that I put there, I only put critically ill population for Brazil, but with the Omicron going through the roof right now, the numbers, we might even finish the severe population data the trial. So we might have 9 tasks that could complete in 2022 or initiate in 2022. So the critically ill population where we are is we now have about 20 sites. Am I right, Scott, with Dr. Kelly? 20 sites we have about.
That's correct.
Okay,
we're adding more.
Yes, and I think they said that they're going to have about they could have up to 40 in the next 2 months after December.
Correct.
But by the end of December, we should have 20, 25. And if those sites are in place, enrolling 51 patients or 50 patients, because 40% of 126 is 50.4, so maybe 50 patients. But whatever, that's not going to be a problem if there is a spike in the COVID-19 cases. Now, people keep saying, why did you reduce it to 50 patients? And, this is you're not going to hit the primary endpoint. We explained our endpoint that we have is different than survival, and we already had powered the study based upon that data, very valuable CD12 data. But if we do an interim analysis at 51 patients and we don't hit our primary endpoint, so we continue. As a matter of fact, we might do more than 126. We might do 200, whatever the DSMB said to give us. So this is not shooting ourselves in the foot in any way, shape, or form. And the critically ill, and the severe population, COVID-19, that's going to go forward, and we will get the latest data and always update the shareholders with what we have. And the last thing we have is for the critically ill population that we just submitted to the US FDA. We're excited to start that because unfortunately there are states in the United States where the ICUs are getting packed again. We want to pin down those states and open sites over there immediately and perhaps do our study. But we will be working with CROs. We are currently working with PPD. And where are we with those discussions, Dr. Reckner? You talked to them and I talked to them. And where are we with those, with PPD?
We're progressing nicely,
Okay,
developing
great.
protocol, etc.
Yeah, Nader, I'll add about Omicron. It's interesting. We do believe this is going to be the dominant strain. We do believe it's going to be more contagious. We don't know if it's going to cause more severe disease. We just don't know that. But if you look, I think it's already in 32 states right now. This is how quickly this goes. So ultimately, it will, I think, overcome Delta and be the most dominant strain. We just don't know if it's going to cause severe disease, and that's something that time will tell.
Yeah, and the latest news yesterday, Boris from England, the Prime Minister, indicated that there was one death already from Omicron. Right. And in CDC this morning said that the 3% of the cases in the United States are now from Omicron. So how much that means?
Yeah. So it's gonna spread, exponentially, as we know. And then the other thing is I would add is that we don't know how that's going to affect the long haulers. Obviously, if you have a more contagious virus, there's a possibility that long haulers might get even more than the 10 to 30% that people say is out there. And if you look, there's already been 271 million cases of COVID. So you're looking at well over 27 million patients that will be potentially affected by long haulers.
So what I'm puzzled is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris, please.
I'm going to say to that point as well, many of the long haulers are those that have gotten COVID more than one time with different variants.
Right.
We're starting to see that there may be a cumulative effect with the amount of exposures as well in patients.
Yeah. And again, we don't know how these people are going to respond to the vaccination. So this is just the truth. We just don't know. We don't know yet.
Yeah, and when I look at the whole thing, I'm so proud of our team that, 2022 long hauler, thanks to Dr. Reckner, we started already have enough data to go forward with FDA and say we want to go to the next level. And having NASH, having cancer in our plate, and HIV, hopefully approval for 2022 is very possible for us. I mean, these things are amazing milestones, and we are very excited about 2022. So let's go to the next slide. I just want to show everybody that from all the way to 2020, every task that we added to our workload was continuously progressed. And then we did 3 more tasks in 2020, 5 more in 2021, and 8 more in 2022. So this is what we have. This is the bet that the shareholders make when they look at the company and look at the fundamental of what we have. And with 2022, I believe we are going to be able to very hopefully have results for in December of our NASH trial. Still not 2022 yet, but the NASH trial results we believe we can report this year. And the breakthrough designation, we might even get answered if we get it sooner than January 5th, it could happen this year. And the rest will be 2022. So with that, does anybody in the panel have anything to add? Chris, Scott, Nitya?
I did, Nader. One
Yes,
thing
please.
is that in keeping with the reduction in fibrosis that we're seeing, these long hauler patients, and perhaps this is a signal of all or many post-viral syndromes, have a lot of fatty deposition in the liver and in the pancreas. Also, they have cardiac involvement as well. And so we're incorporating with this signal that we're seeing with reduction of fibrosis, we think that we'll be able to do this systemically. And we're incorporating that in evaluation of long haulers in our trials as well. I think it's important to not only have a subjective patient-reported outcome, but also objective measures in terms of cognitive testing, MRI, et cetera.
Excellent. Thank you so much. All right.
Yeah, no, I would like to mention, I just recently presented at the World Antiviral Congress on November 30th, and I think this was we covered a lot of ground in that conference in a very short amount of time. We talked about HIV monotherapy, HIV PrEP, HIV cure project, combination therapy, COVID-19 critical population, long haulers, NASH, and oncology. So I think that there's a growing interest as leronlimab as a platform molecule across, multiple indications. And I think what that's going to do for us is we just recently brought, in terms of the partnerships, we just brought back Dr. Brendan Ray, who worked with us in the past. And now that we have data, we think, Brendan's an attorney with virology experience, and we're going to be looking at partnership, opportunities, and not only domestically, but China, Argentina, Taiwan, Southeast Asia, Mexico, Turkey, Korea. We're looking at multiple different things like oncology, HIV, NAFLD, NASH. So I think it's really exciting where we're going into this new year.
Absolutely. And the last thing is, before we go to Q&A, is if the NASH trial is as strong as we believe it's going to be when we unblind it, and let's just say with the open label, let's just say we hit our primary endpoint and secondary endpoint, we will immediately file those results with MHRA UK, Health Canada, Brazil, and Philippines, because we have pharmaceuticals over there that we are working with. So this is going to go to a whole new level if we have a primary and secondary endpoint hit in either open arm or the blinded one. But we will be reporting on that hopefully very soon. So with that, let's go to Q&A, please.
Okay. Why was the COVID-19 study in Brazil downsized to 51 patients versus standard of care, and will the study be powered, if successful, to show statistical significance?
So Albert Einstein Research Organization in Brazil is responsible for studies that was done by Pfizer studies, the vaccine studies, and they publish in New England Journal of Medicine. So we're not dealing with some people who just say things for sake of saying it. They really do their homework, and they are top people in Brazil. They're the one that verified that there's a Omicron case in Brazil. The government really counts on them apparently, and Visa has a great relationship with them. They came to us and they said, look, you're hitting your primary endpoint with 62 patients or an endpoint with 62 patients for the same endpoint that is now your primary endpoint. We can power this, the same power, 80%, and the difference between absolute difference between the two placebo and leronlimab, instead of being 16%, has to be like 24%, something like that. And we believe that that's very doable with 50 patients. So again, if we are not hitting the primary endpoint at 50 patients, no harm. We just continue the study. We have to have interim analysis at some point. So I'm very happy that no, it's 50, but this change will help us to expedite. We always try to expedite without sacrificing the quality. Next, please.
Okay. On the same Brazil topic, there's been quite a few questions asking for an update with regards to the enrollment numbers for both the severe and critical studies in Brazil.
So we get our enrollment update on Thursday, and on the next time that we speak, we will update. I don't think there's any changes yet. The cases were very low. Omicron just started, and we are expecting by the end of December or January, we'll be able to enroll more. By February, obviously, we believe that we're going to be able to have the 51 enrolled. That's what the people at the Albert Einstein Research Hospital believes. And that's all dependent on the spike. If the spike comes, obviously we are hoping that we can enroll, but everything depends on the enrollment. Next, please.
Okay. Next, with regards to NASH, how long is the NASH study, and is 10% decrease in fibrosis thus far in the small number of patients of any real clinical significance?
Dr. Reckner will answer that, please.
So CT1 is a more sensitive way to look at fibrosis. A reduction of 16% is substantial for a PDFF change to reflect the fibrosis. Again, we're interested in reducing fibrosis. The change that we're seeing needs to be compared to what happened in placebo. If placebo is getting way worse and we're seeing that we get better, it's the difference between the two. So I strongly believe that we're going to be able to achieve at least 16% with PDFF. And from what it looks like in the open label, I'm very impressed with the millisecond reductions that we're seeing, especially in these severe patients.
And the data that I got from one of our friends, there was 9 or 10 companies' data that was sent to us, and I believe, if I read it correct, that placebo increased fibrosis and some increase in the fatty deposit PDFF, but there might be placebo that also reduce especially on fatty deposit. But we're just not very far away from that exciting day, in my opinion, to read the data and tell everybody what we have. Next, please.
Yes. When will the top-line results for the blinded NASH results be available? Don't you think it would be better to present all the data, placebo, 350 milligram, and 700 milligram, to the FDA in support of a breakthrough designation for NASH?
Yeah, obviously we will present all of it to FDA. So it's not if it's better or not. That's what we are going to do. The fact that we update everybody is because we want to make sure everybody knows where we are. That's a path that we took 7 years, 8 years ago, or 9 years ago when I became CEO. We wanted to always be crystal clear with the shareholders where we are at. Next, please.
Could you please explain the NASH trial results in comparison to trial results by Madrigal and others in the space?
Dr. Reckner, do you know anything about those trials, or should we defer that to the next time?
I think we're just about to lock the database, and we'll know to be able to announce before Christmas.
Yeah. And I will be calling Dr. Reckner every day. We'll ask him, are we there yet? So I will be doing that. So, next, please.
Can you discuss the potential for partnerships in NASH and in cancer?
So in the cancer, I'm going to give it to Dr. Kelly in a minute, but the NASH and the other indications, when Dr. Brandon Ray joined us before, and then we didn't have any data, he said, guys, there's nothing there. But now when we talked to him, and he talked to Dr. Kelly, saying that you guys, if you have any positive NASH data, the potential of partnership is very high. And in regards to cancer, we're talking to people, but Dr. Kelly, what would you like to tell everybody?
Yeah, I mean, we can't be too specific about that, but what I will tell you is that there is a a growing understanding that the tumor microenvironment is really the next frontier, like I said earlier, in immunotherapy. And I think that people also realize that they're looking for agents to pair their drugs with, which we find very interesting. They're also looking for less toxic available therapies out there, which we think leronlimab kind of speaks for itself in that in regards to other things such as chemotherapy. So I think there's going to be no lack of opportunity in the future if the data continues to pan out. We'd like to get a partnership as well for a trial potentially in oncology. The other thing about NASH, and Nader's exactly right, is Brendan and I talked about that, and he said, if this data is compelling, I don't think we'll have any trouble getting a partner. Now, we can't promise that, but I think that if you look at the people who have failed in NASH, then you will understand there's a growing appetite for NASH opportunities and NAFLD opportunities.
Great, thank you. And in regards to NAFLD, we will move forward the same as we are moving toward with NASH. If the data is as good as we hope to be for 700 milligram, we will file not only breakthrough designation, but fast track designation for both. But we need to discuss that a little bit more detail after the data is unlocked. Next, please.
The short seller said you data sweep for NASH like you do with all other headlines. Can you explain why there was such a big decrease in some, but it looks like there was an increase in half the trial in NASH?
So Dr. Reckner, you want to respond to that?
Well, overall, we're seeing a reduction in all, and this is 20 of the patients in the open label portion. What you're looking for is a reduction of about 40 milliseconds. We'll then compare that to placebo and see what the overall is. I can't tell you at this point. Again, we look at patients that have severe, and we're responding with leronlimab in all but one of the cases. Yes, it's a smaller number, 6 patients, but still that's very impressive given CT1 is greater than 1,000 that they would respond in the way that they are. I think the shorts are, I can't comment on what their thought is with this, but I do know that 80 milliseconds is very impressive reduction, and we will get the results shortly to be able to let it lay where it is.
Yeah, you everybody has the right to short the stock, but don't short your brain. The data and the fundamentals are in front of you. Question us on all of these and we will answer you. But seeing that kind of results, and if you compare that 20 patients or whatever number end up being with the 30 patients in placebo, which is not unblinded yet, and if it happens that we hit a primary endpoint with that, then that's the end of the story. We were successful completely. But we want to wait and get that result. Obviously, we don't know if it's going to be yes or no. And please don't take my smile or my frowning or anything as a indication of anything, because I don't know the results.
Yeah, I think the duration of the trial too, Nader and Chris, wouldn't you agree? At 14 weeks, if we're seeing changes, I think that's pretty impressive. But let's see what the data shows.
Yep.
Okay. Originally, you had mentioned that we might not file for breakthrough designation in NASH due to the FDA requiring a placebo arm. Recent PRs indicate that we might file for a breakthrough designation in NASH. Can you comment on what changed?
Well, the data getting stronger and stronger, as we can see in the press releases. And if the placebo comparison shows where we had a primary endpoint, then definitely we will file the breakthrough designation. Originally, I didn't know if that 20 patients are going to be that strong, but now the strength is quite a bit. Dr. Reckner, could you also tell everybody about severe NASH, which we indicated that CT1 more than 1,000. You look at those numbers and they were very impressive. I believe that you said that this is really strong, but could you emphasize on those severe ones?
Yeah, and that's what, again, we talked on this, but you're seeing out of 6 patients, 5 of them are responding, which is fantastic, about an 84% response rate. What you want to try to do is reduce fibrosis. The hardest one to reduce that in are those severe patients, those that are progressing on to cirrhosis. So to me, as a clinician, having the ability to treat these patients, which they can have rapid progression of fibrosis and death is very exciting. I think you just need to, have the focus on reducing the fibrosis in these patients. I think we are more of a fibrosis reducing agent than what we are fat reducing, but we're still seeing reductions in fat as well. So again, when we unblind, we'll know.
Yeah, and the stellate cells are what produce the scar tissue in the liver, like we were discussing earlier. So we know that those oftentimes will contain CCR5. So I think the mechanism of action makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think that there's a lot of different people going down different paths in NASH, but I think from a mechanism of action standpoint and what we've seen in our animal studies, it really makes a lot of intuitive sense that leronlimab might have an effect, and we will just have to see what the data shows.
So Dr. Ken Sherwood indicated in a published paper, Dr. Kelly, you know about that when you talk to him, that HIV patients, they could have NASH. And if they do, and because of the liver toxicity on a lot of these drugs that are out there, even though they're very, very good right now, a lot of them, but if you can't take those, then you have to take the old ones which they have liver toxicity. Then Dr. Ken Sherwood, suggested in his article that there should be a regimen, there should be CCR5 antagonist product part of everybody's regimen. Can you talk about that, Dr. Kelly?
Dr. Ken Sherman, he said that he felt that CCR5, if it shows, like for example, if we get this data, and again, it makes intuitive sense. If we get this data that shows that we have a reduction in NAFLD and NASH, we see a higher rate of NAFLD and NASH in the HIV population. So the question is, why wouldn't you try to do that, to have CCR5 as kind of the foundation of an HIV regimen? And it's a very good point that he's making, I think, Nader. I think you could help the HIV, but you might ameliorate some of or make it better, for both NAFLD and NASH potentially. And I think that's one of the things, and make it more convenient as a once a week than a daily pill. But we do know the rates are higher for NAFLD and NASH in HIV population versus the general public, which is already off the charts, right? It's a huge market opportunity for both indications.
So when we did the long haulers study, Dr. Reckner generated quite a bit of data that was very interesting. One of the data that he generated from the part of that primary endpoint, it wasn't the whole primary endpoint. The whole primary endpoint was 24 symptoms. But one of the symptoms, the joint pain, was 350% clinically better in just 226 patients or so that we had, 2 arms, 26 each or something like that. And when you see p-value for that being 0.02 or 0.01, it was statistically significant. To me, as a layman person, I see that this product can help if it can help joint pain, if it can help fatty deposit reduction, if it can help fibrosis, if it can help cancer tumors to shrink, and maybe people who have a cancer and they take the cancer tumor out, maybe they can have recurrence. So to have this to prevent it, if that's the case, if we can show that, then our label of our product would have to have all of these benefits as well as the side effects. And to me, it's just stunning to be blessed to have this opportunity to bring a drug like leronlimab with all the aspects that we are finding out about this drug. So with that, let's go to the next question, please.
Okay. Can any severe or critical patients in COVID-19 get treatment with leronlimab? What pathways are open with respect to compassionate use or right to try in the US?
So we're talking about COVID-19, correct, Antonio?
Yes, and then I think the second question is outside of COVID-19.
Okay. So with the right to try, obviously the laws are very clear what we can do, what we cannot, and we follow those laws. We have people on right to try, and with the expanded access that we filed for HIV multi-drug resistance, obviously that's a very important filing. We have problem with our protocol and it needs to be modified. We didn't do a good job filing the protocol that we did. We're now going to do a better job, and FDA told us that, and we are going to send the right protocol the right way, and they give us guidance as always. And with the other indications, that we have, if somebody asks for right to try, we just have to follow the laws. But expanded access, we are very excited for also cancer to file that. Hopefully, if we get breakthrough designation, we have 15 days to file that. But then in regards to charging the patients, which is something we're going to need because of a little company, having 40 patients in extension arm for almost 4 years in HIV, 7 years on 5 patients in another arm, and all these emergency INDs and compassionate use being given. Mr. Antonio Milgriassi is our CFO, and everybody should call him every day and ask him where are we with that filing that he needs to give to the FDA to allow us to charge. I'll give you guys his cell phone if I need to, but he's working hard with the folks that are putting the package together. Once we give that to FDA, I think that's the last package, and we might be able to charge and allow people to have it under their laws and regulations, whatever that is. Antonio, I'm sorry I said that. Go ahead, please go to the next one.
The pressure's on. Hi, can you tell us the total revenue thus far from the Philippines and any revenue guidance for 2022? I can answer this. So we don't give revenue guidance. However, in our last filed 10Q, we did record about $40,000 of revenue, and we also did disclose that we received another $200,000 in orders from the Philippines. So that's where we stand with regards to that question.
And let me just say one thing, Antonio, one quick thing is we also sent $300,000 worth of product to Philippines on top of those that Antonio just said, but that's not a purchase order. We sent that because we realized it takes 4 to 8 weeks to get a product from here to there. So we made an agreement to put the product there. That way, the next purchase order, they can just take it from that. Am I correct on what I'm saying, Antonio? Did I say anything incorrect?
Yes, so we've established a consignment warehouse in the Philippines in order to expedite the movement of the leronlimab from U.S. to Philippines. As we were working through the supply chain, it was taking a significant amount of time from the time we received an order to be able to get to the end customer. So as we grow and we mature, these are some of the things that we're doing to help cut down on that time.
Perfect. Okay, so we only got 3 more minutes, so go ahead, give us the last 1 or 2 questions, please.
Okay. Is the HIV BLA application on schedule despite the issue with Amrex? Did we extract and clean the needed data?
So we're working on all of that, and we will be giving update on that. I don't want to say one way or another. As long as we have everybody focused, our deadline is end of March. That's what we put for everybody. Can we meet that? Are we going to get delayed? We will let everybody know, as soon as we have more information. In regards to the meeting with FDA, Type B meeting, we will be filing that hopefully soon. We have so much on our plate and our team is exhausted, but we will be doing that also to meet with FDA and go over everything we have, or if there was some shortage, and see where we can get. But we will update everybody on that when we can. Anybody wants to add anything, Nitya or Chris? Okay. Nitya, you're muted. Nitya, you're muted, I think.
I know.
Okay.
Yes, you're right. So we are working on the Type B meeting request, and hopefully this meeting request will go out very soon, and we'll have a meeting. If the Type B meeting should have probably in January or February, we should have a meeting, and at that time we are going to discuss with FDA our BLA filing strategy for the clinical module and what we have achieved. And so that discussion will have with FDA. So yes, our target is still by end of March to complete the BLA. And but we are going to update, as we have more information on the different activities.
Great. Antonio, do you want to read any more, or do we
let's just do one last question.
Okay.
Since we have 1 minute. When do you anticipate when the FDA will give an answer with regard to the triple negative breast cancer EUA?
So for the breakthrough designation, as we said, the January 5th will be 60 days. So anytime before that, we expect to get the results. So with that, let's just say a few words for conclusion of this meeting. I hope our shareholders are looking at the fundamentals. In this month, we could get very strong results from NASH. Hopefully primary endpoint, secondary endpoint will be announced also. And the breakthrough designation, hopefully we can get it this month or a few days into January. We have monotherapy that we talk about, HIV monotherapy, that we're going to pursue next year very aggressively. We have the NASH trial that could give us breakthrough designation if the results are good, and if not, then we will do phase 3. Metastasis triple negative breast cancer and basket trial cancer will be our focus also. And COVID-19 in Brazil, we're very comfortable saying that we feel very strong that the team at Brazil are fantastic and they are doing everything they can to get the enrollment for that 51 patient critically ill population by January or February. So that would be able to give us something very strong. So the outlook of the future for us is very strong, and the critically ill population in the United States, I don't want to forget that, but that's also something we will pursue. So with all that, thank you everyone for being on this call, and have a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year if we don't have another call before that.
Thank you for your participation, and you may disconnect at this time.